Hi there. Today we are going to start with coordinate geometry. And the first thing we're going to do is finding gradient of a straight line. So what is the gradient of a straight line? Well, it is how steep the line is, and specifically a straight line. So for example, if I have a line like that, so that is steepness. I could have a line that is less steep, and I could have a line that faces that way, going down the hill, or I could have a straight line just flat. Right, so let's understand what these are. So this is higher steepness, and is higher positive. So when I say steepness, it means gradient. Okay, so in math, we don't normally say steepness, but this is just a language for you to understand. So steepness is gradient, and you will find this also referred to as slope. Okay, so when you're going uphill, that is positive gradient. Obviously this line compared to this one is less steep. So this one is also positive, but with a lower gradient. This one is going downhill, so downhill. Okay, so you're going from up, going down, down, down. This is called negative gradient. And when the line is just flat, you could think of a flat surface you're walking on. The gradient for that line is 0. There is no steepness. Okay, so how do we find steepness? Well, if you have a line, for example this one here, you could easily just get 2 points. So let's say I've got coordinate here, which is at this point I'm not going to check any numbers, so let's just say that's your x2 and y2, and you have another coordinate, this one here, let's just say that's x1 and your y1. Okay, so steepness, or gradient in this case, called gradient, is change. This symbol means change in y, divide by change in x. Okay, so how do we find change in y? Y is the vertical direction and x is the horizontal. So change is from there to there for y, and from here to there for x. So what we need to do is just take that point, which is y2, so gradient equals to y2, take away this value here for y, and now give me this gap here. That's the change. You change from there to there. So y2 take away 1, divide by x2. So it's change from there to there. Now I want to see the gap from there to there. I take the difference between the two coordinates of x. So x2 take away x1. And this is your formula for gradient. So change in y divided by change in x. Okay, so sometime, well, you will see something like m. So this is also called gradient. We use this symbol when we start working with equations of lines. So if you see m on as a gradient, you know that is the symbol for gradient. Okay, so let's move on to the next exercise. Suppose I have this line and I want to find gradient of this yellow line here. Well, there are two ways to do this. You could think of for every one change in x, so from there to there, how far does it go up? So I go 0 to 1, and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for every one of x, this line has gone 5. So my gradient is 5. That's just one shortcut, but let's do our way. So gradient is change in y. So let's just see here what's our coordinate at this point is x is 1 and y is 6. At this point, this coordinate x is 0 and y is 1. So gradient change in y, so y2 take away y1 divide by x2 take away x1. Well, if this is my y2 and x2, then it's 6 take away y1 over there, take away 1, divide by 1 take away 0, which gives me 5 over 1, which is 5. Now what you need to remember is that don't start with this coordinate y2 take away y1 and then as a denominator you do 0 take away 1. That will give you the wrong answer. Okay, so I'm going to use both of these words, m gradient slope. You need to get used to them, equals to 5. The gradient of this line is 5. That means for every one of x, it goes up 5 in the y direction. Now let's try this example. How do we find gradient for this line here? Okay, again, you can pick any coordinate, but I always like to pick somewhere where I can easily read. So for example, I can see there, I can read there, my coordinate there is 1, 4, and I can see this coordinate here is, well, on this line x is 0 and the y coordinate is 8. So these are my x2 and y2, and these are my x1 and y1. Okay, so gradient equals to, well, y2 is 8, take away y1 is 4, divide by, well, x2 is 0, take away x1 is 1. So the answer is 8 take away 4, 4 divide by -1, which is going to give you -4. So like I say, we are going down the hill, okay, from left to right. That means we are going to get a negative gradient. Right, let's do some exercise on gradient. Suppose that you're just given 2 points. You should be able to do that. I'm just going to have some example. I have 2 coordinates. One is -2, -1, and the other 3, -6. And I need to find a gradient. These 2 points lie on the same line. Okay. So gradient, you can do what you want. You can have these as your x1 and y1, and you can have these as x2 and y2. So gradient, y2 take away y1 -6 or -6, take away a -1, divide by x2, which is 3, take away a -2. Okay, so -6, negative, that will give you positive. So -6 plus 1 gives you -5. 3 take away 2, these 2 will give you positive. That will be 3 plus 2, which is 5. -5 divided by 5 is 1. So gradient is equal to, so a -1. Okay, now I have another example. So let's say we have a coordinate that passes through a line, and the coordinate is 2, -4, and we are told the y-intercept is equal to -6. What does this mean? We haven't done much about intercept yet, but it's where the line crosses the y-axis. So this is your y-axis and this is your x-axis. So this particular line, we don't know where it goes, but we know it cuts through the y-axis at the point -6. So where y is -6, let's just say is there, and then we draw our line. I'm not sure if it goes that way or not, but that's the point. It could be going that way. I haven't investigated yet, but this is the value of the y-axis. What we need is the coordinate. So at this point on the y-axis, we know x is 0. So we can write this coordinate here as 0, -6. That means we now have two coordinates there and this one here. You can choose which one to call x1 and which one to call x2 and y2. I'm just going to say these are my x1 and these are my x2, y2. So gradient equals, that's my y2, so -6, take away my y1, -4, so -4. You must take the sign with you. Take away my x2 is 0, take away my x1 is 2. So that gives me -6, negative gives you positive, so -6, add 4, that gives me -2. 0, take away -2, take away 2 is -2. Negative divided by negative is positive. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So gradient for this particular line is going to be equals to 1.